So for those that work in a company, who has a clear idea of the business plan of the company that you're in? Okay, some hands up. And is this a formalized business plan, something that's like in a document that's maybe about 50 or 100 pages or something like that? Yeah? And hands up if you've read it. Honestly. Yeah? Okay, we'll talk later. So this guy here, he also had the same problem. Mark Benioff, for those that might not know his name. He was working in Oracle back in the 90s. So this isn't the Oracle we know and love as they are today. This is when Oracle was growing quite rapidly. And he was working at Oracle, and when he started working, he asked, so what's our roadmap, what's our plan for the next 5 years? And his superior basically said, we don't have one. What about 6-month plan? Don't have that either. And this was a problem because when people asked him what needed to be done, he said, guys, I'm sorry, I don't have an idea. And so basically the issue was that he did not have a clear idea of where he needed to go, and he couldn't transmit that either to the people that he had reporting to. And that was a big thing that was missing for him. There was a lack of focus, there was a lack of alignment, and he basically had the missing part for him was this vision. What's driving me? What's driving us as a company? And so the poor guy, he had no other choice. He left. And he did quite a bit of soul searching, and he thought, there has to be a better way. What kind of thing can we do to make sure that anybody in the company can be aligned and have a clear idea of where we need to be? So he created a startup. He started off in an apartment back in 1999. And he said, I'm done with these things with documents and things like having no idea of where to go. So he just basically created a one-page statement to basically start the company off. And the idea is that he called it basically a V2MOM. And from here, what he did was basically say that the V2MOMs for him were a way to get him to help the company. And it's been used to guide every decision that we made since 1999 to the decisions we make today as one of the biggest high-tech companies in San Francisco. And the company is, of course, Salesforce. Who doesn't know? Who's not aware of Salesforce? Everybody knows about Salesforce, right? So this is a company that started in 1999, and it grew in just 15 years. It generated $5 billion in revenue. So quite interesting, from an apartment to one of the biggest SaaS companies in the world. First SaaS company to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And now it's basically on the tip of everybody's tongue these days. So, he basically created V2MOMs. So what are V2MOMs? We start with V2MOMs is basically an acronym, for those that might not have figured it out yet. And the idea is it's VVMOM, but to make it a little bit trendier, he called it V2MOMs. So we start with the vision. What do we want to do as a company? And this should be this killer phrase that should be about 10 to 15 words that can really get the company to align and to have a common idea of where it is that we want to go. So in the case of Salesforce, we basically said we want to rapidly create a world-class internet company or site for Salesforce automation. That's a pretty clear vision, right? And next, we have values. So what are the most important aspects of the vision? And what are the prioritized principles that we want to have? And these are normally 3 to 5 principles that can help guide us into executing the vision. In the case of Salesforce, we had 5. World-class organization, time to market, functional, usability, and value-added partnerships. Next, we have methods. Now, this is how we are going to be able to execute the vision. And these are normally certain tasks or steps that need to be taken to assure that the vision can be met. In the case of Salesforce, being a startup at that time, hire the team, finalize product specification and technical architecture, rapidly develop the product specification beta and production stages. And bear in mind, this was back in 1999. This was before people came into a cabin and said, let's create this thing called the Agile Manifesto. And yet, the idea was that they wanted to keep things simple and to basically say, this is what we need to do. Then everybody else can figure out how in terms of more detail. And of course, they had to be aware of other things that include obstacles. So these are the things that could possibly get in our way of achieving the vision. And here, these are things that could be internal or external impediments. So there could be things that could be controlled by the company itself or not. In the case of Salesforce, to get going, they need to build a team. So potential obstacles is to getting the team together. Would they be able to find the developers they need? Would they be able to find a business person to get everything going? And finally, we have measures. So this is how we know we actually achieved the vision. And these are normally numerical numerical data to say that, okay, we have this data that suggests that we've actually met the vision, executing the methods that we had before, and we actually met the V2MOMs. In the case of Salesforce, the prototype is state-of-the-art. We had a high-quality functional system, partnerships are online and integrated, Salesforce.com is regarded as a leader and visionary, and my personal favorite, we are all rich. That's a pretty good indicator of knowing that we've actually met the goals. So I work at Typeform. And for those that are not familiar with Typeform, we are basically a web-based platform for collecting and sharing information in a conversational and human way. And we're also a SaaS company. So we haven't hit the milestones that Salesforce has. We haven't existed for 15 years yet, and we're definitely not creating $5 billion of revenue annually, but we would like to get there one day. So we have similar problems as Salesforce that we've identified. Our growth has been exponential. We started off in 2012 with a handful of people, and now we are over 150 people. And we know that we're going to grow even more. And we've seen that we have potential issues in alignment, where we have, before everybody sitting in the same room and able to talk to each other, now it's becoming a little bit more of an issue because of more people that we need to talk to and to align with and to communicate with. And we want to be able to maintain an environment where we can support collaboration and communication, and also being able to have maintain sharing of interesting conversations. We also wanted to make sure that we're able to focus our efforts in the correct areas. So rather than shooting in all different directions, we wanted to make sure that we know that we're making progress in the right areas, and that we're also able to inspect and adapt accordingly depending on latest findings and how the market is also evolving. But we also didn't want to focus too much on the approach itself. We wanted to look at how we could get the results executed. So we initially had a look at OKRs as a potential idea of what we can do to get this going, because it's been quite popular. It's been used in companies like Google, LinkedIn, Intel, and they do help create focus and prioritization of different items. And for those that might not know what OKRs are, I'm not going to give it the full justice it deserves, because that's another talk in itself. Sorry. But basically, OKRs means objectives and key results. Objectives are goals, which could be set at annually and quarterly level, and they basically tell us where to go. And key results are basically things that indicate how we can possibly get there to achieve those objectives. And there are 4 main rules. Set them annually and quarterly, as I said before. Not to have too many OKRs. So the idea is to have 5 objectives and about 4 key results per objective. They should be challenging. So the idea is that we can't meet all objectives and key results, but the idea is to be able to meet 70 or 80%. And they should also basically have some kind of numerical value in the key results. So we looked at OKRs, and we felt there was something missing. We felt there was some kind of human approach for us as an organization in our context that was missing in terms of how we are as a startup in that time. What was missing for us was basically the vision. So, okay, we have OKRs and things like that, but where does that fit? So we saw that Salesforce had similar issues, and we thought, let's give V2MOMs a try. So we did. We took them as a template, and we said, okay, V2MOMs. We start at the corporate level, defining them with the co-founders, and then each division would also define their own V2MOMs in accordance with the V2MOMs of the company itself. And then under each division, each team. Now at this time, things were quite dynamic in the organization, and we were more task-driven. There weren't that many people. We know we needed to get certain things done to be able to get certain investors on board and things like that. So we had to be in a bit of a mad rush in saying, okay, this feature needs to be done, this task needs to be done. But we also figured out that this was not a good idea and a good to be able to keep going with. So one thing that we did was also looked at the methods and measures, those particular categories in the V2MOMs, and thought, okay, well, we didn't really buy into using OKRs, but we like the idea of having the key results. So instead of calling them key results, we just call them methods and measures. So instead of having 5 categories, we whittle them down to 4. And basically, the methods and measures is what KRs are in OKRs. So we modified the V2MOMs to best fit our needs. Then after a few more quarters, we thought, okay, we're growing, we're becoming a bit more successful, and we wanted to create 3 different pillars of the V2MOMs. So we wanted to make sure that we could focus on 3 particular aspects of the organization, regardless of how we grow, and no matter what happens in the future. The first one is business. So obviously we want to make sure that we keep generating revenue, that we keep making money, and that we continue to grow as a business. Next item, which is super important as well, is innovation. We don't want to rest on our laurels on where we are as a product, where we are as an organization. We want to keep evolving, keep improving, adding, trying new technologies, trying different techniques for improving the platform itself. And we wanted to make sure that that is also something that's not only supported but also acted upon at an organizational level. And lastly, culture. So for us, we didn't want to sacrifice innovation and culture just for the sake of improving business. If we improve the business aspects of the organization at the expense of culture and innovation, then we have failed as an organization. And this is something that is accentuated in all the V2MOMs, and to make sure that we are able to continually succeed as who we are, as far as the identity is concerned as well, then we feel that we are in a good shape. So now we have the V2MOMs for our current quarter, and we have the vision, the values, methods and measures with the 3 different categories. Now the good thing about this is that this isn't a 50-page document. This is one piece of paper printed out, and it's not something that is emailed out once and then forgotten about. It's printed out as a big poster, and it's visible for everybody to see. And we did see that there was some still lack of visibility that was just put in the corner, and people didn't really take notice of it. So we strategically placed it near the bar where there's free beer and coffee, and there's a lot of traffic there. And then all of a sudden, hey, we've still got those V2MOMs there. Oh yeah, that's right, we still got to do this, and we've got these ideas that we haven't really talked about in the last week or so. Now, this is the company V2MOMs, but we also have V2MOMs for every team in every division. This is one of the Scrum teams, where we have V2MOMs printed out right next to the Scrum board. So at the very least, people would see this on a daily basis. And so if there would be any kind of doubts in terms of what needs to be tackled, maybe the V2MOMs can help out as a guide. So after using V2MOMs for a few different quarters, we have seen some benefits. First is transparency. There's no real secrets in terms of what the co-founders want to do, what the management and the leaders want to do in the organization, and as well as each team. They're all printed out, they're all visible. You want to see the V2MOMs for each team? Just do a walk around the office. The next is alignment. So due to this transparency as well, the idea is that we have full alignment between the teams and also between the different layers of the organization. And because we have a clarified direction, we know where to focus our collective attention on which aspects we need to focus on. And because it's just one page, they're easy to digest. And the process itself in creating V2MOMs is quite straightforward as well. Which reminds me, in a couple of minutes, I will be asking everybody to write their own V2MOMs. So I see quite a few people with pens and paper. Just be ready for that so it doesn't come as a complete shock. It's also cross-functional. So the idea is we normally have in our organization cross-functional teams. We have testing, we have development, we have back-end, front-end, UX, and the V2MOMs aren't necessarily specific to one particular discipline or one speciality. The V2MOMs are there to say, okay, how can we maximize value as a team? And due to that as well, we felt there was no real need for having individual V2MOMs, because the V2MOMs for the individual are the V2MOMs for the team. So for us, it felt a bit redundant to have the individual V2MOMs. So we go down to team-based V2MOMs. We write them, we share them. Again, we want to have full transparency. We can tweak them, we can negotiate them. We do write them every quarter, but that doesn't mean that they're set in stone. After a month has passed, we also say, hey, how are we looking? Are we going to meet our V2MOMs? Yes, no, well, this one might be tricky. Then we can also remove some, add some, and modify accordingly. Because the idea for V2MOMs for us isn't something that says, you must do this. It's meant to be a guide, and we treat them accordingly. And it's also, of course, helped us maintain focus. Of course, we do have benefits, but we also have room for growth. There have been some issues, such as there is some problems with alignment with some of the teams. This is also showing that the teams need to communicate a little bit more. So the fault isn't on V2MOMs themselves, but it actually shows us that we need to tackle some communication issues with particular teams. Some teams need to have more open-ended goals. So the idea was that we wanted to make sure that teams can create their own V2MOMs, but some people haven't had enough experience in creating their own V2MOMs. And as part of the learning process, they're learning how detailed they should be, or how they should be more driven to the what instead of the how in the V2MOMs. So we're still learning, and we're going to get there, hopefully. And because of this as well, ownership of the V2MOMs can also be improved. So right now, the company V2MOMs are created by some of the leaders in the organization, and then say, here are the V2MOMs. So although the V2MOMs themselves are transparent, the process in creating them isn't, in fact, as transparent as we would like. The other thing is, people always say, always in a mad rush to get everything done, they say, oh, we're starting the new quarter next week. We should get the new V2MOMs out the door. And so then there's still this mad rush in trying to get the V2MOMs ready to be agreed upon, printed out, and ready for the quarter. So we can also improve that. And some teams also, although they need the V2MOMs as a guide, some don't really see how that impacts their day-to-day work. And this could also be improved. So this is, again, a matter of education and a matter of experience and getting used to the V2MOMs themselves. Now, we did mention OKRs before, and I said that we didn't see the fit of OKRs in our organization. I don't want this to turn into a whole OKR versus V2MOMs discussion. The idea is that everybody has their own context. So right now, we in Typeform as a company, where we are with 150 people, we see V2MOMs as something that's given value to us versus OKRs. That doesn't mean OKRs can't work for you or something else. The idea is that V2MOMs is one way of doing it, and you can also adapt it to your needs. Okay, it's just a tool. The core idea between OKRs and V2MOMs is the same. The approach is different. And even us, we haven't taken V2MOMs wholesale. We started them with it as a template, but we also adapted them to our needs and made them unique. And the idea is that maybe you guys can also have the same approach if you choose to use OKRs or V2MOMs or whatever. So, now that we have an idea of what V2MOMs are, let's make our own. So, hopefully everyone's got some pen and paper. This isn't something that you need to do or you're forced to do, but I think it would be an interesting exercise over the next couple of minutes. And we create our own V2MOMs. So this could be something that you could think about whether you want to do it at an individual level or for your team in your organization or for anything in particular in life. I created my own V2MOMs for these 2 days here in CAS. So, for example, my vision, what do I want? I want to have an awesome CAS 2016 experience. My values, honesty, enjoy every moment, listening, and always keep smiling. Now, I have cheated because I like the idea of combining methods and measures, so don't kill me. But my methods, I want to be able to meet and converse with 5 people I haven't met before the end of the week. I want to catch up with at least 5 old friends and also converse with them as well. And get 6 takeaways to be able to apply first day back in the office. Obstacles. I'm recovering from a cold, so that's been a challenge for me, but I'm getting there. And also there could be the very realistic problem of being completely bombarded with new ideas and my brain gets fried. That's also an obstacle that I have to try to tackle. So, I invite you all to spend the next few minutes to write some V2MOMs. So remember, the vision should be a 10 to 15 word phrase that basically encapsulates what it is that we wanted to do. Next we have values. So what are the aspects of the vision that are important to you? Next we have methods. How do we achieve the vision? And then we have obstacles. What could stop us from achieving the vision? And finally, measures. How do we know we've achieved the vision? How are we doing? Has anyone finished? Would anyone be brave enough to share their V2MOMs? No one? Okay. Applause. Please, yes.
So I'm thinking of the team,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll ask the question, who should create this? Is the team or who in the team?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's enabling. We're working in something called share campaigns. Enabling the share campaigns to increase the company growth.
Mm-hmm.
So the values for me, teamwork, have fun, learn and innovate. Methods, using Scrum, new tools, test, fail, learn and change. Obstacles, the CTO. Team issues, the learning curve.
Uh-huh.
And the measures is the number of the shared campaigns going live, and it's the number of issues tends to zero.
Awesome. Have you done V2MOMs before? Then this is a very solid V2MOMs. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so to summarize, we have V2MOMs, VVMOM. Vision, what do we want to do? Values, what are the most important aspects of the vision? Methods, how do we achieve the vision? Obstacles, what could stop us from achieving our vision? And measures, how do we know we achieved our vision? And I will leave you with this quote from Dwight Eisenhower. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. My name is Dino Zafirakos. Thank you all very much for your time. Any questions? Yes?
So you set up the V2
Mums?
and the team is challenged, and how you use them, how you keep them challenged and focus on the objectives, and at the end are you tying rewards somehow to them?
Okay, so what we use V2MOMs for in our organization isn't something to say, okay, your performance is based on the V2MOMs. We don't apply that. We basically use V2MOMs as a guiding principle to say, okay, this is the path that we want to take, rather than saying you must do this, this, and this. That everything that we have is negotiable. So if we feel we can't achieve it, we say why, and we also adapt the V2MOMs accordingly. So even if they are set, we can adapt them even in the same quarter that they're in. But maybe it won't make sense to try to adapt them a week before they're due or things like that. And it's not something where we get the backhand if we don't achieve our V2MOMs. It's basically what we are, think of it as like we are committing to achieving the V2MOMs, but we're not committed in terms of this is a contract or anything like that. Did that answer your question? No?
I believe that is right. I still don't know.
Okay. Yes?
You said that you have two levels of V2MOMs, direction level and city levels.
Mm-hmm.
Do you connect them in some way?
We actually have three levels. So we have the company V2MOMs, then we have the V2MOMs for each division, so marketing, engineering, things like that. And then below that is the other V2MOMs for each team. So the idea is that the V2MOMs for the company should feed the V2MOMs for each division, each department, and then that will also feed into the V2MOMs for each team. So the link between the teams and the company V2MOMs is the department-wide V2MOMs. Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, there was another question, yeah. 3, yeah. So right now, yep. So right now, for example, the company V2MOMs are V2MOMs that are discussed between the co-founders and the leaders of each department. And this is something we would like to change in the future to have more involvement in the team, of each team. The team V2MOMs are actually created by the team themselves. So we have a Scrum team, which would have the product owner, Scrum Master, UX, testing, development. They all sit together and they create the V2MOMs for that team, based on the V2MOMs that are given by each division and and from the company V2MOMs. So the idea is that they have more ownership of their own V2MOMs. We haven't really seen a need for that yet. It could be that we need it in the future, but right now we just use Google Docs, and the idea is that people can share them and then people can add comments and things like that. So you can please add something that would help us with removing one of our obstacles and things like that. So the idea is that these are all shared internally, and that we can also provide comments and to be able to give feedback on the V2MOMs for other teams as well. Okay. Sorry. So the decision was made by the co-founders, and this was something that they wanted to put in. So this, like for example, the decision on the 3 pillars, they noticed that business is important, but they also didn't want to sacrifice innovation and culture. So that's something that's important to them. And the idea is that they organize and say, okay, well, guys, now end of quarter's coming, we need to have our new V2MOMs. Please set up meetings with our new V2MOMs and we can discuss V2MOMs for each department, and we can give feedback, etc. So this is something that's driven by that level. Quite possible. And I would say that even though you might have different ways of having objectives and items like that in your organization, I don't think there should be anything that could prevent, for example, one particular team to say, okay, we want to use OKRs, or we want to use V2MOMs. Because this is something that's saying that this is what they agree on as a team, on what's important for them. So obviously there are advantages on having something company-wide, but there should not be anything stopping you from having something at a team level even. And you had a question as well. Yeah. Okay. So yes, this is something that, because when we had them printed out, this was before we actually had we had a whole retreat planned on redefining the values for the organization, and this actually happened at the beginning of October. So technically, we didn't have them set for that quarter. So we should be printing in the new ones out in January, and then we'll have the updated values. So we actually had a whole weekend on that, but we didn't have them there. We don't plan to change them every quarter, but this was something that we wanted to discuss as an organization, because of the fact that the values were defined by a much smaller group of people, because there were much less people in the organization, and we wanted to not necessarily redefine the values, but retackle the values, because there were some values that for some people didn't make as much sense when there's an organization of 10 people. When there are 150 people, then maybe we need to rethink. Yes, yes. This isn't. Yeah. Exactly. No. This isn't something that you should be changing. Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. No, this isn't something you should be changing every 3 months or anything like that. It should be it should be going. That's the direction you want to go, and then the methods, obstacles, and measures will be things that you would be updating more often. Cool. Thank you all very much.